The top stories tonight in Y News. The Philippines is ready to facilitate an emergency repatriation of Filipinos from Israel amid the heaviest fighting between Israeli forces and Palestinian militants.
The Department of Health seeks the inclusion of Oman and the United Arab Emirates in the list of countries the Philippines has imposed a travel ban on.
Self-exiled communist leader Jose Maria Joma Sison shrugged off the government's move to designate him as a terrorist. Tropical storm Christine remains likely to make landfall in the Davao Oriental, Surigao del Sur area.
A report commissioned by the World Health Organization says that the COVID-19 pandemic could have been prevented and need not have taken millions of lives.
And 1,000 feral cats unleashed on Chicago streets to fight the rat problem. Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Thursday, May 13, 2021. I am Harleen Delgado.
Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the country and other parts of the world. I'm Angelo Castro III.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website untvweb.com. I am William Theo.
First in the news. A Filipino working in Israel shares her experience as the aggression between Israeli and Palestinian militants continues to rise. Meanwhile, the Philippine government has placed contingency plans for thousands of Filipinos who are working and residing in Israel. Ray Palayo reports.
Linda Castro Libre has been working in Israel as a caregiver for 10 years. Her employer's house is about 10 miles away from Gaza, where an escalating exchange of airstrikes and rocket fires between Israel and Palestinian militant group Hamas is happening.
Yan, Gaza na po yan. Yan. Tapos nung kahapon may tinamaan po dyan, sa likod lang po ng eskwelahan.
According to Linda, she cannot hide her fear despite living near rocket interceptors that they call Iron Dome.
May 3 Iron Dome po dito sa likod ng bahay namin. Kaya po pag nag-intercept po yung Iron Dome sa rocket, dito po talaga ang bagsak sa taas ng building namin. Kaya pag pag yung pagsabog po talagang malakas po talaga kasi ito umuuga po talaga yung building namin.
In Israel, all homes, residential buildings and industrial buildings are also required to have bomb shelters. This is to protect residents when there is an incoming missile.
Sobrang kapal ng salamin na yan. Yan. Tapos, maliban dyan sa salamin na yan, ito, bakal ito. Yan, bakal po yan. Yan, bakal po yan. Kaya, yan, ganyan po yan.
And to assure the safety of the Filipinos, the Philippine government has set up measures which includes the repatriation of affected Filipinos.
Ang gobyerno naman po natin, kung talagang kakailanganin, siyempre po, susunduin natin ating mga kababayan kung talagang kinakailangan at kung gusto po talaga nila.
So far, no Filipino has been reported to be among the casualties in the violence. In case of emergency, the Philippine Embassy said it may be reached at 972-54-466-1188. Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Department of Health will recommend prohibiting the entry to the Philippines of foreign travelers from the United Arab Emirates and Oman. JP Duñez tells us why.
To prevent the further entry of the COVID-19 variant from India, the Department of Health sought the inclusion of Oman and the United Arab Emirates in the list of countries with travel restrictions. Health Secretary Francisco Duque III says he sent the recommendation to the Office of the Executive Secretary to ban incoming travelers from these Middle East countries for 2 weeks. This came after the Philippines recorded 2 cases of the B.1.617.2 variant on 2 Filipino seafarers who arrived from Oman and UAE. Both did not have travel history to India.
But we need to level up even more yung ating border control. Okay? Now, the border control covers not only travel bans, but also more importantly, ensuring the 14-day quarantine period is strictly complied with. Okay? So, yan po ang ginagawa natin ngayon. Kaya natin sila natuklasan.
Meanwhile, DOH also recommends to extend the existing travel ban in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Sri Lanka for 2 more weeks.
Well, kung mapirmahan mamaya, so we'll give another day para siyempre yung mga nakabiyahe na, we have to give them a chance. Pero i-quarantine natin kung sino man yung dumating for strict part of the strict border control. So kung 14, baka 15 mag-umpisa.
JP Nunez, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
President Rodrigo Duterte is expected to announce today the new round of quarantine classifications in the National Capital Region Plus and in other parts of the country, which are currently placed under modified enhanced community quarantine. The MECQ ends tomorrow, May 14. The president will hold his public address and meeting with some high-ranking officials of the Interagency Task Force Against COVID-19 tonight. The issue of whether to extend or lift the travel restrictions imposed by the Philippine government on India, Pakistan, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh may also be discussed.
Nagkaroon po ng rekomendasyon sa susunod na quarantine classification na inaasahan namang i-anunsyo na ating presidente mamayang gabi dahil tuloy din po ang talk to the people ng ating presidente mamayang gabi.
Meanwhile, the Department of the Interior and Local Government, or DILG, has filed a case against the owner of Gubat sa Ciudad Resort in Caloocan City following an incident in the government's protocol on mass gatherings. The DILG says the resort owner must face the case. Janice Inhente tells us why.
The owner and the personnel of Gubat sa Ciudad Resort in Caloocan City are facing charges for violating Republic Act 11332 or the Mandatory Reporting of Notifiable Diseases and Health Events of Public Health Concern Act. The personnel include the resort's general manager and the 8 associates of the resort's management, according to DILG Undersecretary Jonathan Malaya. The Department of Justice in the City Prosecutor's Office, meanwhile, is handling the case filed by the Caloocan local government over the resort's violation of the city ordinance.
Kailangan niya pong harapin itong kasong ito. Pag hindi niya po ito sinagot, magdidesisyon po ang piskal without his side. At pag nangyari po yan, masasampahan po siya ng kaso. At baka po makapaglabas na ng warrant of arrest ang korte. Kaya mas maganda po kung sasagutin niya.
The DILG has also issued a show cause order to Barangay 171 Chairman Romeo Rivera to explain the mass gathering that occurred in his barangay.
Kung hindi po makakapagpaliwanag ng maayos ang ating barangay captain, ay magsasampa rin po kami ng kaukulang kaso sa Office of the Ombudsman.
Also, the government has traced 108 people who went to the venue. That's less than 25% of the 496 individuals on the resort's guest list on May 9th. The challenge the DILG is facing is that majority of the persons on the guest list have either provided a wrong contact number or none at all.
Marami pong kapabayaan ang management ng resort. In fact, hindi po kumpleto yung mga impormasyon na nakalagay dun sa kanilang logbook or sa mga guest tabs.
Those that had been traced have undergo testing for COVID-19. All their results came out negative. Now, authorities are calling on the resort's visitors on May 9 to come out and report to the local government to get tested for COVID-19. Janice Inhente, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, the Department of the Interior and local government does not agree that contact tracing is the weakest link in the Philippines' COVID-19 response. The statement, contact tracing being the weakest link, came from the contact tracing czar himself. Marvin Calas reports why.
Well, to be honest with you, I would say it's still the weakest link among the pillars. Talagang nakatutok po kami sa mga local government units kasi ang local government unit naman talaga ang kailangan mag-conduct po ng contact tracing at ito yung kanilang ito yung kanilang primary responsibility.
Contrary with the earlier statement of Baguio City Mayor and contact tracing czar Benjamin Magalong that contact tracing is the weakest link of the country's COVID-19 response, the Department of Interior and local government claims that the prevention of COVID-19 infection should be the national government's priority for improvement, adding that the public's cooperation is important and health protocols should be observed.
Kami po sa DILG have never believed na ang ating contact tracing is the weakest link. No? Actually, we disagree. In fact, doon po sa ating EDITR strategy, which is prevent, detect, isolate, trace, and rehabilitate or reintegrate, ang sa tingin ko po ang pinaka-weakest link natin is yung ating prevention. Kaya nga po tayo nang uhuli ng mga kababayan nating hindi sumusunod sa mga minimum health standards dahil nandun po madaming violation.
DILG is confident that the government is on the right track with its intensified contact tracing effort, including the nearly 6,000 new additional contact tracers funded by the Department of Labor and Employment. Not to mention the other 15,000 contact tracers hired by the DILG in January this year, wherein more than 2,000 contact tracers were deployed in Metro Manila. Marvin Calas, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, the Philippines' cumulative tally of COVID-19 cases climbed to 1,124,724. The Department of Health reported 6,385 additional cases of coronavirus infections today. In its latest bulletin, the DOH said active cases slightly went up to 55,260. Of these, 93.3% are mild, 2.2% are asymptomatic, 1.9% are severe, and 1.4% are in critical condition. The DOH also reported 4,289 more recovered patients, bringing the total number of patients who have survived the disease to 1,050,643. The death toll climbed to 18,821 with 107 new fatalities.
Vaccine czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. assured that no vaccine will be wasted as millions of doses of AstraZeneca vaccines are set to expire next month. Meanwhile, Health Secretary Francisco Duque III defends the status of the COVID-19 vaccine deployment in the country. Aiko Miguel explains why.
The government has planned the distribution and inoculation of AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccines among the priority sector. According to Vaccine czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr., they have instructed vaccination sites to prioritize using the 1.5 million AstraZeneca jabs, which is set to expire on June 30.
But we believe yung sa AstraZeneca, we can manage that considering that our daily inoculation right now is 83,000. And it will gonna increase over the days, considering that we are increasing our capacity and we are activating more vaccination sites. So when we computed on the daily output that we had, the daily throughput that we had, kaya nating i-manage yung AstraZeneca by June 15. We expecting na matatapos po lahat po yon.
More than 500,000 AstraZeneca vaccines which are expiring in July will also be administered as second doses of those previously vaccinated. The Department of Health also explained last Tuesday that the Vaccination Operations Center has a mechanism to assure vaccines will not be left unused and just expire.
We will be giving these vaccines as first dose because WHO has committed that they will be providing additional AstraZeneca vaccines by the end of May or the first week of June. So almost all or all vaccines ngayon wala pong mahahabang expiry date.
Last week, the DOH has officially resumed the AstraZeneca vaccination on people below 60 years old. Their decision is based on studies that blood clotting incidents are very rare. Health Secretary Francisco Duque III defended the status of the vaccine deployment following Manila Mayor Isko Moreno's remarks over the super slow deployment of vaccines to local government units.
Hindi naman po mabagal. Ginagawa po natin ayon sa proseso, tamang proseso. Hindi ka naman pwedeng basta-basta magtuturok lang ng mga bakuna na walang malinaw na authorization.
The Department of the Interior and local government also disagrees on Mayor Isko's comment.
The vaccine cluster is now undergoing simulation exercises para po magkaroon tayo ng 120,000 jobs per day sa June. Ang mga local government units, nakikita naman po natin Yusek, araw-araw. Ang dami na pong napapakunahan sa ating mga kababayan. So, maganda na po sa tingin namin sa DILG ang ating ginagawang vaccination program.
The government is expecting to receive additional 2.4 million doses of Pfizer vaccines this month. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Big Dome becomes one of Quezon City's mega vaccination sites. The multi-purpose indoor venue will be used for Q citizens inoculation for free for 7 days. Arlene Delgado will tell us why.
Officials from the Quezon City Health Department have inspected the Smart Araneta Coliseum for its use as the city's mega vaccination site. Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte says this will help in inoculating its citizens in the priority groups faster. Belmonte thanked the Araneta Group for offering their facility for free, noting that the Coliseum is a suitable site for the vaccination rollout for its adequate space and accessibility to the public. For its part, the Araneta Group says it is their contribution to the government's COVID-19 efforts. The vaccination will run from Saturday, May 15 to May 21. Belmonte estimates that the Big Dome is capable of vaccinating 1,000 to 1,500 individuals per day. Added measures will be put in place, such as filters and fan systems, to ensure proper ventilation inside the facility. According to Belmonte, the Araneta Group has offered its own medical personnel to help in the vaccination rollout. Following the arrival of additional AstraZeneca vaccines, the QCLGU has also opened more slots for its online booking for the vaccination appointments of those who are included in the A1 to A3 priority groups. Aside from the Big Dome, other vaccination centers in the city will also continue in its vaccination rollout. As of May 11, over 147,000 individuals have been vaccinated in Metro Manila's most populous city, of which more than 42,000 vaccinees have received their second dose of COVID-19 vaccine. Harleen Delgado, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
For those watching our 24/7 live streaming on YouTube, please click the subscribe button you see on your screen and ring the bell for notification. You may also follow us on Facebook.
Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque denies there are inconsistencies in his and other cabinet members' statements on the West Philippine Sea issue. Secretary Roque assures there is no bad blood between him and Foreign Affairs Secretary Teddy Locsin Jr. Rosalie Cos will tell us why.
Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque stood firm that the policy of President Rodrigo Duterte on the West Philippine Sea issues is consistent and has not changed, and this is what he has been discussing to the public. He made the statement following the warning issued by Foreign Affairs Secretary Teddy Locsin that the Department of Foreign Affairs has the sole authority when it comes to foreign relations.
Yung pula mo, I don't think holds water because all of the agencies will have to comply with the policy of the President. Kaya nga po, mahirap na supilin ang pananalita ng presidential spokesperson. Unless talagang magdesisyon si Presidente na mali-mali ang mga pinagsasabi ko, in which case, sisisantihin niya ako. But I'm still talking today because the President is still the architect of foreign policy.
Presidential spokesperson Roque said he and Secretary Locsin have already agreed that he will still discuss issues pertaining to international law with regards to the West Philippine Sea issues publicly. Meanwhile, the palace official also reiterated that because of the Duterte administration's policy on China, Filipino fishermen are now able to fish at the disputed Bajo de Masinloc or Scarborough Shoal. He made the statement in response to a fisherman's statement that their situation in the area has not changed even after President Duterte's promise in 2016 that they could fish peacefully in the country's territorial waters.
Unang-una ang tanong, nakakapaghanap buhay ka ba ngayon? Hindi ba totoo na nung mga panahon ng mga administrasyong Aquino kung saan tayo po ay palaaway sa China, yun po yung panahon na hindi kayo nakapanghisda sa Boro. So wag po natin kakalimutan na kung hindi po nabago ang pulisiya natin sa China, hindi pa rin po kayo makakapangisda. Sino po ngayon ang nagbigay ng pagkakataon sa iyo, Carlo, para magkaroon ng pagkain sa hapagkainan? Hindi ba po ang pulisiya ng Presidente? At hindi ang pulisiya na awayin ang China?
Also, Roque revealed that he and retired Supreme Court Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio have engaged with virtual debate on the West Philippine Sea issues through a television channel. Rosa Licoz, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Department of Foreign Affairs, or DFA, fired off another diplomatic protest against the presence of Chinese militia vessels in the waters of Kalayaan, Palawan. Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. on Twitter ordered the DFA to lodge the note verbal against Beijing's incursion in Philippine waters. The National Task Force for the West Philippine Sea reported that at least 287 Chinese maritime militia vessels were spotted over various features of Kalayaan when the Area Task Force West conducted a maritime patrol last May 9. Bigger groupings of the militia vessels were sighted over China's artificial islands, while some were observed near islands occupied by the Philippines.
A political analyst believes that former Senator Antonio Trillanes IV is just testing the waters, or in other words, exploring the feasibility of becoming a presidential candidate in the 2022 national elections. Malacanang, meanwhile, expressed doubts over the former Solon's political plans. Nel Maribojo explains why.
Former Senator Antonio Trillanes IV insists that Vice President Leni Robredo has preparing to run for governor in Camarines Sur. Trillanes reposted on his Twitter some local news showing VP Robredo had transferred her residence outside Naga City. He also clarified that he never said that Robredo has decided to run for a gubernatorial post. Trillanes made the statement after Robredo's spokesperson Barry Gutierrez and Liberal Party stalwart former Congressman Teddy Baguilat said that VP Robredo has no decision yet in the 2022 poll and no preparations to run as governor. According to political analyst Ramon Casiple, Trillanes and other personalities who have already expressed their intentions to run in the 2022 polls are just trying to get the public's feedback.
Puro testing the waters pa yun ngayon. Ako tingin ko, mga bandang mga end of June pa, lilitaw talaga kung merong mga seryoso na kandidato, no?
Meanwhile, presidential spokesperson Ari Roque expressed doubts over Trillanes' intent to run for the highest position in the land since Robredo has yet to decide on her possible political plans for the elections.
Una, libre pong mangarap. So, hayaan po nating mangarap na maging presidente si dating Senador Trillanes. Karapatan po niya yan bilang isang Pilipino. Pangalawa, mukhang di naman siya makakatakbo dahil lininaw po ni Vice President Leni na tatakbo pa rin siya. No? At least nandyan pa rin yung plano.
Meanwhile, according to UST Political Science Professor Dennis Coronacion, President Rodrigo Duterte's popularity among Filipinos remains. Coronacion added that the president's fame has a crucial role in the upcoming elections.
Parang malinis pa ang imahe ng Pangulo. Parang enough for him to sustain his popularity until 2022. At kung magkakaroon man ng political values by 2022, maaaring madala pa na popularity niya kung sino man yung kanyang i-endorse.
Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
A vandalism incident occurred on one of the trains of the Metrorail Transit Line 3 last night. No culprit has been identified yet. Meanwhile, the Philippine National Police commits to providing intensified security at MRT stations after the incident. Asher Kadapan Jr. explains why.
The Metrorail Transit Line 3 identifies some high security risk areas in their operation that require more safety measures. This comes after an incident of vandalism by still unidentified culprits in the area approaching EDSA Taft Avenue station at past 8 o'clock last night. With this, the MRT3 management intensifies its security and repositions its security cameras to cover a wider perimeter in concerned areas. Transportation Assistant Secretary Amard Ejes said they also requested for additional security and patrol from the Philippine National Police as well as the corresponding local government units.
Pati sa dagdag security, hingi din tayo ng tulong sa ating kapulisan. Sa local government, ganun din upang makatulong din sila sa mga security arrangements sa buong release natin kasi ilang LGU ang dinadaanan sa buong EDSA.
PNP Chief Police General Guillermo Eleazar, on the other hand, gave his commitment in providing intensified security for MRT3.
Lalo natin pag-iigihin yung ating pagbantay kung itong mga pulis natin naman is nakadeploy sa mga areas na yon in coordination with the security forces, particularly private security forces.
Eleazar also said the PNP will help in the investigation of the vandalism incident and file appropriate case against whoever may be responsible for the crime. Eje also appeals for information from anyone who may have knowledge or witnessed the incident. Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
And in other news, a man charged in a hate crime assault on a Filipina in New York City in March pleaded not guilty and is being held on a $1 million bond. Meanwhile, the Philippine Consul General in Los Angeles will prioritize the safety of the Filipino community. Sherry Pama reports why.
Brandon Elliott, 38-year-old Manhattan resident, pleaded not guilty to the assault charges he's been accused of relating to the beating of the 65-year-old Filipino woman in New York on March 29. CCTV footage witnessed the suspect kicking the victim in the middle of the street. The footage also caught Elliott cursing while telling the woman that she did not belong in America. Judge Maxwell Wiley has charged Elliott with a $500,000 cash bond or $1 million insurance bond or a $1 million bond. The new Los Angeles Philippine Consulate General Edgar Badajos is now working with authorities to know if there are more Filipinos experiencing hate crimes. He has also advised the Filipinos to be careful and report to the police and consulate offices any incidents.
We can assure you that we, the Philippine Consulate General, stands in solidarity with you in facing this menace.
In a virtual forum for the Filipino Workers Center, San Diego Deputy District Attorney Leonard Trin reported that over 50% of hate crimes in California from 2019 until as of recent recordings have been because of race and ethnicity. Trin explained that hate crime is an incident where a person may feel bias against their disability, gender, nationality, race or ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, or association with any of the categories aforementioned. In this year alone, Asian hate crimes have occurred in various states such as Georgia, San Francisco, including New York. Cherry Pama, UNTV News and Rescue, USA. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, Tropical Storm Krising has maintained its strength while moving closer towards Davao Oriental, Surigao del Sur area. State Weather Bureau Pag-asa says as of 4 p.m. today, the center of Krising was located at 150 kilometers southeast of Hinatuan, Surigao del Sur, moving west-northwestward at 25 kilometers per hour. It has maximum sustained winds of 65 kilometers per hour near the center and gustiness of up to 80 kilometers per hour. Today until tomorrow afternoon, moderate to heavy rains may prevail over Caraga, Davao Region, Northern Mindanao, Socsargen, Bangsamoro, and Palawan. Tropical cyclone wind signal number 2 is raised over the southern portion of Surigao del Sur, the southern portion of Agusan del Sur, the northern portion of Davao Oriental, the northern portion of Davao de Oro, and the northern portion of Davao del Norte. Meanwhile, signal number 1 is placed over the southeastern portion of Negros Oriental and Siquijor, Surigao del Norte, the rest of Surigao del Sur, Agusan del Sur, Agusan del Norte, the rest of Davao Oriental, Davao de Oro, Davao del Norte, Davao City, Bukidnon, Lanao del Sur, Lanao del Norte, Misamis Occidental, Misamis Oriental, Camiguin, the northeastern portion of Zamboanga del Sur, and the northeastern portion of Zamboanga del Norte. Krising is likely to make landfall over Davao Oriental, Surigao del Sur area between tonight and tomorrow morning. It is forecast to weaken into a tropical depression tomorrow and may weaken on Sunday morning after it passed over Palawan. Communist leader Joma Sison shrugged off the Philippine government's move to designate him and other alleged high-ranking members of the Communist Party of the Philippines New People's Army, or CPP-NPA, as terrorists. Other personalities also tagged as terrorists called the Anti-Terrorism Council's move unfair and baseless. Dante Amento tells us why.
Communist Party of the Philippines founder Joma Sison and his wife were among the 29 individuals designated as terrorists in a resolution published by the Anti-Terrorism Council. Sison, who is in the Netherlands, said he and his spouse are not at all bothered by the inclusion of their names in the list. He, however, admitted worrying about the welfare of other personalities tagged in the list who are staying in the Philippines. The Public Interest Law Center Legal Counsel for Ray Casambre and Adelberto Silva, on the other hand, says there is no basis to designate their clients as terrorists. Vicente Ladlad's wife Fides Lim stresses it is unfair to include her husband in the list. Lim adds her husband is not a terrorist nor a criminal and that she is willing to get a legal remedy. The same with peace consultant Rafael Bailosis, which he called the ATC's move unfair, and the accusation against him was baseless and malicious. Under Section 25 of the Anti-Terrorism Law, the ATC has the authority to designate individuals, groups of individuals, organizations, or associations as terrorists without a court hearing. This will allow the Anti-Money Laundering Council to freeze the assets of designated personalities or organizations. Individuals tagged as terrorists have 15 days to file a request for delisting. Dante Amento, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The independent panel set up by the World Health Organization says the COVID-19 pandemic was a preventable disaster that need not have cost millions of lives if the world had reacted more quickly. R.K. Liorca will give us the details live.
Yes, Herlene said the COVID-19 pandemic exposed dangerous failings on the national and international scale. The report of the panel titled COVID-19 Make It the Last Pandemic and chaired by a former president of Liberia found a range of problems. It said preparation was inconsistent and underfunded, the alert system too slow and too weak, while the World Health Organization was underpowered. The panel said COVID-19 was a preventable disaster. Calling COVID-19 a terrible wake-up call, the panel issued a string of recommendations such as creating a new global threats council with power to hold countries accountable, setting up a disease surveillance system to publish information without the approval of countries concerned, having a pandemic financing facility, classifying vaccines as public goods, and getting immediate requests for wealthy nations to commit on vaccine support programs to low-income countries. Back to you, Herlene.
Thank you, RK Liorca, reporting live from Thailand.
And for the news abroad, a UK study has found that people who receive mixed doses of COVID-19 vaccines are more likely to experience mild side effects. Mavian Dog will tell us why live. Yes, Maeve, good evening.
Good evening, Marielle. UK researchers reported on Wednesday that mild side effects like fever, chills, fatigue, or headache are occurring more frequently among those who receive COVID-19 vaccine types for their first and second doses. Associate Professor of Pediatrics and Vaccinology at the University of Oxford, Dr. Matthew Snape, said in a media briefing that while this is an intriguing finding, these are the types of reactions that are seen in standard schedules, and the side effects were resolved quickly. The research involved 830 volunteers aged 50 and up getting vaccinated with either the AstraZeneca or Pfizer for both doses, or one of each vaccine as their first or second dose, given 28 days apart. Researchers wrote in the Lancet Medical Journal that 41% of those who received Pfizer first and AstraZeneca second had fever, while only 21% of those who received Pfizer for both doses were reported to have experienced the same side effect. Similar findings were reported for other side effects like chills, fatigue, headache, joint pain, malaise, and muscle ache. There were no hospitalizations or evidence of rare blood clotting that has been linked to the AstraZeneca vaccine. Given the challenges associated with immunizing large populations against the virus, England's Deputy Chief Medical Officer Dr. Jonathan Bantam said there may be advantages to administering mixed doses, and flexible immunization programs could help combat the potential global supply constraints. Further research is now underway to test mixed administration of the Novavax and Moderna vaccines. Marielle?
All right, Maeve, thank you for that live report. Faced with a growing fuel shortage, Americans frantically stock up on gasoline after a major U.S. pipeline network was forced offline by a cyber attack. Justine Masakayan reports why.
Disruption to the Colonial Pipeline created long lines at gas stations in the eastern part of the United States. Fistfights in some areas have been reported as people panic buy gasoline, including one posted in social media between two customers in North Carolina. This comes after a ransomware attack shut down the major pipeline system that transports fuel across the coast from New Jersey down to Texas. Investigations have already started, and the company is working with law enforcement, including the Department of Energy, who is the leading federal government response. Experts also urge the public not to panic. In a latest press release by officials, a restart of pipeline operations had commenced at approximately 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Following this, however, it will take several days for the product delivery supply chain to return to normal. Likewise, U.S. President Joe Biden says that the government is closely communicating with Colonial Pipeline regarding the situation and has already lifted restrictions on the distribution of fuel and assist those in need of supply.
We have been in very, very close contact with Colonial Pipeline, which is the one area you're talking about where one of the reasons the gasoline prices are going up. And I think you're going to hear some good news in the next 24 hours. And I think we'll be getting that under control. Secondly, I have, in the meantime, made it easier for us to have lifted some of the restrictions on the transportation of fuel, as well as access to the United States military providing fuel and with vehicles to get it there where places where it's badly needed.
Justin Masakayan, UNTV News and Rescue, USA, We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Hundreds of mice continue to infest New South Wales farms in Australia, and farmers are now pleading financial help from the government. Meanwhile, a feral cat solution was introduced to attack the rat problems of Chicago, USA. Nina Bascon reports.
Mice invasion threatens farmers of New South Wales, Australia, as crops, stored grain, and machinery are infested with rodents. Video footage was released to the public showing the severity of the problem as farmers expel hundreds of dead and live mice from an infested machine. A request to the Agriculture Minister of NSW was made by state farmers and the Country Women's Association to counteract this mice problem, insisting that $25,000 were to be given to each farm to set up mice bait approved by the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization. While this crisis breaks out in NSW, in Chicago, USA, a feline solution was introduced by the Chicago Animal Shelter to combat an ongoing rat outbreak in the city. 2 to 3 spayed cats are introduced to areas of the city of Illinois that are infested with rats to kill rat colonies and keep them away with their pheromones. Cats who cannot survive in home ecosystems or cat colonies take part in this program, and since 2012, 1,000 feral cats have participated in this solution. Nina Bascon, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
And those are the news in other parts of the globe. I am Mariela Toza, live from Perth, Australia. Good evening.
And those are the reasons behind the news, May 13, 2021. I am Hardin Delgado.
Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I'm Angelo Castro III.
And because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.